We've got a $50 donation from Shortfall. The Groose is loose. Greetings from down under. Thank you to all the runners, behind-the-scenes staff, and supporters for putting on a great show. Let's get that manic monkey maze madness met. And it looks like we are good to go up on stage, so let's hand it back to Zallard1 for the Splatterhouse 2 run.
All right, so this game is Splatterhouse 2. It was released on the Genesis instead of the TurboGrafx, which is kind of an oddity in and of itself because like usually sequels will be like either like on the same console or like the same line of consoles, but this one kind of just deviates from that, potentially because like the TurboGrafx's popularity in the US wasn't so hot. Yeah, so let's get this started. All right, so 3, 2, 1, and go.
All right. So the first difference you're going to see, other than that the mask is white and I guess they got around the copyright, is that he's doing high jumps to slide, and that's because the sliding in this game is different from Splatterhouse 1. If you do a low jump, you actually have to be frame perfect on your slides, and you get up to 7 frames if you do a high jump for a slide. So that's why he's constantly high jumping. It does make the sliding in this game a bit more unwieldy, so that's why he's short hopping at times to kind of position himself for another slide.
Yeah.
And the Japanese version has some really interesting names for the enemies and bosses. Like, these are called dead men. They're just translated as zombies for the US version. And this boss that's about to come out is called Dead Man Fat, and you're about to see why.
Nice.
Very nice fight.
Yeah, that boss is like a throwback to the Deadly Spawn, which was, I think that movie was released in like 1983 or so. That and like the boar worms from like the first game, like I think it was like the first boss or whatever. Yeah, like these games are pretty good about like just direct references to horror movies like that, which is also like another element that's pretty fun with these games.
So it's probably worth talking about the lore of this game. So in the first game, you know, there's a mansion from Dr. West, and the story of this game is that 3 months after the incidents of the first Splatterhouse, is that Rick is plagued by nightmares over the fact that he could not save Jennifer, and in some of these nightmares, the mask is calling to him, and the mask actually says that Jennifer is not dead. It's worth noting that in the Japanese version, it's actually called the Hell Mask. And, you know, can't have the H word in the US, so they just call it the Cursed Mask or the Mask.
But yeah, the terror
and the translation,
mask too,
yeah, terror mask. And,
Yeah.
Oh, is there something you want to say?
It's sort of like interesting because like there's a whole bunch of like implications with like the Japanese manual's lore that she's dead, but it also like kind of says that like she's alive.
Yeah. It's a bit strange, and basically what you saw in the first stage was actually the ruins of the first Splatterhouse.
Yeah, it doesn't mention that anywhere in the US version at all.
Which is actually really cool, but that they actually like decided to go all out on the lore for the manual in the Japanese version, and then they just really just kind of chop it down for the US translation. So unlike the first game, there's not really a whole lot of gimmicks when it comes to the bosses dying. The only one is the first boss where the stomach acid can hit you if you're right next to the boss.
Yeah, I think that's the only like sneak attack that I can think of off the top of my head.
And this level can be pretty annoying to navigate because he has to not only jump over these pools of water, but it also doesn't really give him a lot of room to slide.
Yeah, if this comes off as very Michael Jackson Moonwalker-esque, it's got a lot of similar sound effects from that game for these screams.
So to go on with the story, So the mask calls to him and says that you can find a hidden mansion past the ruins of the first Splatterhouse. And if you find this, you might be able to find the secret resurrection ceremony and save Jennifer. And so Rick puts the mask on his brow and he's out to, rescue Jennifer again.
Yeah, like that's like totally left out. Like you'll see that in the I think it's the 6th stage, which is basically just like a boss fight. Like it kind of just like, I think the US version refers to it as just like a portal to the void.
Yeah.
But Japanese version like specifically mentions it as like a resurrection ceremony.
Yeah.
Which is, kind of like, huh?
Yeah.
So she's alive, you say?
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
And one thing that's worth noting is that this game is really gory. It's way gorier than Mortal Kombat, even though that was the game that received all the controversy back in 1993 with the Senate panel hearing. I think the only reason why this game didn't get any controversy and Splatterhouse 3 didn't is that they just were nowhere near as popular as Mortal Kombat.
Yeah.
Yeah, these were games that, for whatever reason, never really caught on in the States, which is kind of interesting considering how well, 80s slasher flicks and stuff did.
I have to mention, I love this ore.
Yeah,
like,
the ore's
it just
the best.
launches these dudes like 40 feet to his left.
Yeah. No, Rick has a really strong batting stance.
Yeah. All right, so this room is like really technical to get right. There's a chance I might mess it up, but basically, your controls get reversed whenever you come into contact with some of these blue ghosts.
Yeah. They're actually called ectoplasms, which is kind of interesting. And they reverse your controls. And the thing is, the more that swarm around you, the more lag you get. So what he's going to do is wiggle left and right sometimes, like he just did right there, just to get rid of the ghosts, because even though that's a slight time sacrifice, it's much faster than just charging on through with a bunch of lag.
You can even see right there, just with 3, the game starts screeching to a halt really quickly.
All right, nice. That was actually pretty good.
Yeah, really good room.
So this boss is like a reference to like 2 different like things. Like this one's supposed to be like kind of like the fly. Oh, I messed up the start of this. There's an easy way to do this. So now I have to like kind of get him into this loop. Come on. The hitboxes are pretty tough to deal with whenever, because your like range with your jump kick is pretty short.
Yeah. Giving one of the enemies Rick's slide is definitely a way to make them feel somewhat unfair.
Yeah. And this boss's name is called Metamore, I think. It
Yeah.
had a very strange name in the manual.
And then this boss is sort of like a reference to the thing.
Yeah. And it's worth noting that, like, in the manual, it specifically states that this monster is the creation of Dr. West, aka the original Splatterhouse.
Yeah. Yeah, it's weird because like the U.S. manual like talks about this like Dr. Mueller fellow, but like he's never like mentioned in any of the other games, so it's just like kind of odd.
They just changed it in the translation, which is weird because in the original Splatterhouse, they also call him Dr. West, so just something got lost between 1 and 2, I guess.
Yeah.
And talk about all this stuff in the Amazon. So he tried to collect the gun there, but the thing is the game, unlike Splatterhouse 1 where you can just tap up for a frame or tap down for a frame, you have to tap up or down, hold up or down for 4 frames before you collect something. So he let go just slightly too early for that. And it's worth noting that this is actually the quote-unquote new Splatterhouse.
Yeah, this isn't the same mansion as the first one.
Yeah.
Ooh. Okay, those were on like a different timer than I was used to. That's gonna make this next room kind of tricky because there's like a lot of damage boosts I take in this stage. So.
Let me go old-fashioned. We'll put things in the foreground to make the level more interesting, quote unquote.
I'm trying to get this guy out of the way. Oof. Okay. Let's see here.
You might want to take a death at the beginning of the next area.
Yeah, that's definitely an option. The Splatterhouse games are fairly good about setting you up with extra lives and such.
I'm gonna try to like see how far I get with this 1 hit point. Like,
Okay.
like the punishment isn't too bad. Like I don't get sent like several rooms back or anything. I just restart the room.
Yeah.
So, I mean, worst case scenario, I could show you like different types of strats. You know, like if I were to have more health.
So the only notable thing about this area is that you need to slide at a certain position so you can hit those monsters twice with your slide.
Yeah.
Yeah. There are situations where if you like slide too early, they'll only get hit once, or maybe they might like jump over your kick. So.
And this room is just pretty awful overall.
Yeah.
And now's probably a good time for a quick donation.
All right, I've got one right here. $25 from CNA. Wanted to donate in support of Zallard's Run since I'm not in the room in person. It's great seeing Rick roll through these stages. Great job on Splatterhouse and good luck on Splatterhouse 2.
Oof.
Cutting it close there. All right.
So this is the stage 5 boss. It's actually really interesting because it's just like a very like interesting kind of boss fight because he actually dies in 1 hit once you get to the very end. I mean, you can hit him here, but he's just invincible. But he's just constantly harassing you with these beakers and the monsters. And this is actually Dr. West. Like it explicitly states this in the Japanese manual. And there you
Made
go.
it through.
Woo!
Very nice. Good save.
And this is actually the resurrection ceremony right here.
Yeah, that's what Mike was alluding to earlier. So, yeah, there's like just a whole bunch of like details in the Japanese manual that kind of imply that she's dead. Like, also this like after this stage, you go to this like pretty trippy area, and the game calls that like the land of the dead instead of the void, which is a bit more like
Dramatic?
Yeah. It also just provides like a more like complete picture, like a extra context on like what's actually going on here. So that's like her soul, like that's not actually like her body or whatever. So like the next stage kind of like goes through that a little bit.
This is not a terribly exciting boss. The big thing is that if you let it get out of hand, it can really overwhelm you fast because the next section with the flying heads, if you don't defeat them right away, then they'll just constantly fly around.
Yeah, they kind of just stay on screen and take these like super erratic patterns. So you really want to be on top of taking everything out as they approach.
The dances never get old. They're so good.
They just don't.
Yeah.
Like, you just got to keep doing it.
Yeah.
All right, so we're kind of approaching like the end game here.
Yeah, this is the next to last stage. And seizure warning. This
Yeah,
game is
yeah.
not
Yeah.
very. Stage is not very friendly to encoding or people who might be prone to seizures. So.
So all these spawns are fixed. That's kind of just like the story of like everything in this game. Like everything is fixed. If you take damage, it's usually just like, you know, the timing of everything. So like something that's especially noteworthy is like Rick controls like extra sluggish in this version. Like Rick's punch is like active for 15 frames in the first game, and in this one it's active for 8, which is like half the time. So you have to be like extra certain that you time everything correctly. Otherwise, it just like you're gonna get hit.
And here's the Death Crystal boss.
Yeah.
And he is actually in the world of the dead right now, as Zallard mentioned. Or, as we say in the US version, the void.
Right.
Yep.
And as you can see, Jennifer grew some hair, got that 80s metal style.
Yeah.
Yeah. So So I'm going to be trying to go for a trick here. It's pretty tough, but it doesn't really cost like any time or any health or anything. So if I get it, I'll explain it more.
And there's not too much to this quote-unquote boss, so you can probably have time for a donation.
Nice.
I got it.
Ooh,
Very
nice.
well.
Oh, never mind.
We like.
Okay, so what goes on there, there's a certain positioning you have to take. The game takes control of Rick at the end of that area. And basically there's a cutscene that plays where you and Jennifer walk through this portal. But if you time it to where you walk like as far as you can, and then near the middle of the screen, you do a backward slide kick and you don't veer in your direction at all, then you can actually break through bounds on the back of the screen and underflow your character position to the other side of the screen, which makes Rick cross the end stage trigger.
I'd say it's what, about 5 seconds?
It's like 5 or 6.
Yeah.
If you miss it, then you have like a net loss of like 12 seconds.
Yeah.
So you really want to hit it if possible.
So as you can see, while Jennifer's been dead, or not dead, however you want to look at it, she has clearly been skipping leg day the entire time.
Yeah.
Yep.
And this boss is not RNG, but you have to do a lot of tight maneuvers here.
Yeah.
And he specifically punched 2 of those so you could have a bigger
I
stock
missed the
of
final hit.
stock of I guess tentacle stakes to throw.
Yeah.
Yep. The tool assisted run does that. I mean, you have to do that. It's optimized.
Yeah.
Right.
All right, so there's like a pretty rough trick here for this final boss. Basically, I'm going to try to trick the game into... so like the slide kick has like a couple of pretty strict requirements in this game, and one of them is you can't do a slide kick out of the same jump where you did a jump attack. But there's a 3-frame window where you can chain your punch into a jump. And the game doesn't really know how to handle that well. It doesn't classify that as an attack, so... Oops. Ah. Which direction? Ah, man. Well, it's cool, because I messed up the first part of it, so I get another chance to show you what's up.
Yeah.
What the Japanese manual does is kind of interesting here, is that it actually hides the image of the boss, because it shows the images of most of the bosses, but this one's covered in blood splatters and just says it's like the horrifying servant of the gods.
Yeah, so I couldn't show it off, but basically, like, I would try to fit in as many slide kicks as possible.
Yeah. And time's coming up pretty soon.
Yep,
Yeah.
time. So yeah, those were the 2 Splatterhouse games. I hope you all enjoyed it, and yeah, I think I'm done.
Yeah, that was good fun.
Good work,
Come on,
man.
man.
Thank you.
Good.
All right, thank you, Zallard, for those awesome runs. Some follow-up donations for Splatterhouse. $10 from Mecha Richter 88. Hey guys, I just wanted to say I miss you guys so much, and I'm really sad I wasn't able to make it to SGDQ this year. You guys are doing a wonderful job. Keep it up. P.S. Zallard, I'm at 7,000 ancient souls now. Miss Holiday sends in $25. I just got engaged to my girlfriend, so what better time to donate? Thank all of you guys for being awesome and making this event possible. Get that monkey ball run. Hey, congratulations, Miss Holiday. All right, and it looks like we are going to be heading over to the interview couch now, where Cent and OmniGamer are going to be talking about Sylvan Tale.
Good morning, everybody. You guys are watching Summer Games Done Quick 2018. My name is Cent, and joining me is the wonderful, the talented, and the very interesting OmniGamer. Omni,
Hello,
how you
everybody.
doing?
It's good to be here.
It's good to have you here, Omni. So, coming up in just a run or two, you're actually going to be doing your first run of this marathon, Sylvan Tale, right?
That's correct.
Sylvan Tale. Omni, in all honesty, I've known you for a couple of years, and you've been around in the speedrunning community forever. I mean, for anyone who doesn't know, OmniGamer is just one of those people who's been here since like 2002. He is ancient in terms of speedrunning, and has quite a few games under his belt. But Sylvan Tale, like, what got you into a game like this? It seems very weird. It's Game Gear. It's super obscure.
So this actually goes back to an event that goes on every so often in the broader speedrunning community called the 12-Hour Challenge. And the entire point of this is to get people just running something that they haven't tried before. Just over the course of a weekend, you've got 12 hours, run through a game, route it, just do a run, and whatever happens is just something to be happy with. And it was one of those events that got me looking at the game. I picked it out, set up for that weekend, and played it once beforehand just to get a feel for it. But the main thing is just it felt well, played well, and enjoyed it from there.
Cool. Yeah, I've done a few 12-hour challenges myself. Definitely a really fun way to kind of get yourself, speedrunning if you've never done a run before. Now, Omni, you routed the game during the 12-hour challenge, if I'm correct, right?
That's right.
How did that change, like, your mentality for routing the game compared to what you might normally do with more time, or did you still kind of approach it from the same angle?
I took about the same approach that I would anytime. This game was straightforward enough, but there was plenty to optimize just in terms of when I would set up certain menus, when I would actually try and go and get certain side objects and other things like that. But really, the main thing that changed just according to a casual playthrough is that, one, you do know basically everywhere you need to go, but the biggest piece, I would say, is that I actually spent a lot of time on the bosses. And this is something that you'll see in the run, that pretty much every boss has some sort of quick kill or otherwise that I spent quite a bit of time just playing around with, and I'm pretty happy with the results.
Fair enough. I always hate comparing games as, Sylvan Tale is like X, but with a little X. But if I had to, I'd say Sylvan Tale is somewhat like, The Legend of Zelda with maybe a little bit of the East series in it. Would you agree with that?
I would say that's fair. It is, well, one of the quirks on it is that it's a first-party Sega game. So this is something that Sega had in their wheelhouse when they were still in the console business, but this is the only iteration of that entire series. It's on Game Gear. It's Japan only. It is the height of obscurity here, but it's a charming game.
It definitely is, and like I mentioned, with it being the height of obscurity, what drew you to it for 12-hour challenge? Why were you like, Sylvan Tale, that's the game I got to play?
As a combination of things. So first of all, I pay attention to what happens in some of the other communities, like the ROM hacking community and that kind of thing. And a translation for it was actually recently released. And I got the first notice of it there. I picked it up based on that, just did a casual playthrough. And after that, when the call for the 12-hour challenge went out, they usually have a theme associated with it. And in this case, it was a handheld theme. So pick a game that you've never done before that you want to do a speedrun of, but you know what? It'd be a bonus if it were a handheld game. And like, hey, this is perfect. I can give it a try.
Yeah, I mean, it's always great when that works out. And speaking of that translation patch, I believe we had an incentive for you to play using it.
That's correct. This is it's a translation from Aeon Genesis, which is a very well-known translation group within the ROM hacking community. And I mean, it's not a text-heavy game, but it's the difference between understanding none of the story versus at least getting the flavors that the game allows you to take. And it's a neat story. Like, you don't expect the super complex flows and anything like that. It's straightforward, but it's sincere and it's sweet.
Gotcha. Well, I mean, I'm glad our audience is probably going to be able to understand it a little better if they're not quite as fluent in Japanese as maybe some of the people out here are. So going back to the console real quick, you brought your Game Gear along with you, and you have some kind of stand for that. I'm assuming that is not retail. That is custom built.
No. This is an OmniGamer special. I 3D printed a stand because, well, believe it or not, you can't just capture a Game Gear right out of the box. You might have to do a couple modifications to it, and for some of those, we set it up just so that we can be able to capture everything. Overall, it was an interesting endeavor to try and just go through the technical aspects. It's certainly not as difficult as setting up a NES to output RGB or anything like that, but it had its share of headaches, I'll say.
Fair enough, fair enough. Sounds like a very interesting endeavor. So real quick, Omni, let's take a couple of questions from social media.
All right.
First off, from Waluigi at GDQ, you know, our favorite Ouija. What are some of the major challenges with this run in particular?
The challenges with the run itself, there are a couple bosses that are quite random. And it's not the good kind of random as in, well, I either get a good pattern or I don't. It's you have blobs moving around the screen and I have no idea what direction they're going to go. And they will kill me very quickly. So just being able to take out some of those. In terms of the actual routing behind the game, some of the difficulties that I initially had, it comes down to simple things, like how many times that I have to press start to either change a power that I'm using or an item. And that does matter a lot throughout the entire course of the run. And I had to spend a lot of time thinking about, well, what's the best way to go through this dungeon while minimizing the number of times that I have to enter the start menu, for example.
Fair enough. So from the Stradivarian, looks like we don't want to spoil too much about the run in advance, but we have a pretty good question here. So at the OmniGamer, will we be seeing some of the neat quirks that you can get with the redacted mechanics in this, and why this unusual and very neat Game Gear game? I think we answered the second half, but I'm very interested in the first part of that question.
So the interesting pieces behind this, you know, we talk a lot about the various glitches and other tricks that we find just to be able to use in these games. And in this case, there were several that I found by complete accident. And that's normally how it goes, is you just start playing game enough, and at the end, you will happen to find some things that don't quite seem right. And if you dig a little deeper, they might even be useful. And there are a couple instances of that you'll be able to see in the run. And it's not something that makes a big splash, but you know, it's one of those things that's just when you find it, it does save some time, and you can use it in an interesting way that a normal player probably wouldn't stumble across. So we do have a couple of those. I would say that for finding them, it really comes down to just play your game a lot, and eventually some things will go wrong, and they might even be helpful.
That's very good advice, Omni. So I have one more question from you. It's a very important question from a very important person. From Quantum Lasagna, what is a Quantum Lasagna? What is your favorite horror game movie? And you know, I'm going to tack a little bit extra onto this since we're just about to get into a little bit of a superhero block coming up with Spider-Man and Batman Forever. What's your favorite comic book?
Ooh, so horror movie first. Oh, the one that terrified me the most as a kid was The Thing.
Interesting answer.
Yeah, I just remember, as far as horror goes, that was one that definitely did it for me. I could not sleep that night. Plenty of scary Antarctic spider head things crawling through my dreams. But as far as comic books, You know, I think I'm going to have to go with Spider-Man.
Ah, great answer. Great answer.
It's just a neat classic all around, and there's a good portion of my childhood that I spent trying to get home quick so I could watch some animated Spider-Man TV series, which I understand is a departure from the comic books, but that's what the best I had to go on. Just a little bit.
Just a little bit. All right. Well, OmniGamer, thank you so much for coming out. Really looking forward to your Sylvan Tale run coming up here just in a little bit. Now, guys, real quick, before we throw it back to the front as we get ready for Wiz and Liz, the frantic rabbit rescue, we're going to head it over to our prize guy, Sent. He's going to talk about some of the cool prizes. Oh, right, that's me. Sorry. Been a rough morning. So, guys, Sylvan Tale is actually going to be your last chance to pick up a bunch of great prizes we've had running all night. We've had a bunch of really cool Zelda-themed shot glasses from our friends over at the Artistry. We have some amazing Zelda prints from our friends over at Studio Pen Pen. But it's also going to be the start of a whole new prize block, all kinds of wonderful new things. And there's one thing in particular I have to absolutely highlight. And it's from our friend and fellow staff member, Deadly Waste. We have this beautiful Marvel 75th Anniversary Anthology. Now what this is a collection of pretty much everyone's issue 1. You know, you have issue 1 of Captain America, you have issue 1 of Spider-Man in here. Everyone Marvel, you got their first appearances. And it's really good. It's like about 1,000 pages, hardcover. It looks great, but you know what? It comes with a little bit of a surprise in here because this thing is also signed by Stan Excelsior Lee himself. So that is a pretty amazing little thing right there. We also have a wonderful copy of the Amazing Spider-Man Essentials. So I mean, Omni, this is all the Spider-Man you might need to actually see what the superhero does.
Yeah, I know. That'll fix up my entire understanding.
I promise he's not Deadpool. They are two different characters. The cartoon might make you assume otherwise. And that actually comes with this beautiful Spider-Man lithograph, which is actually limited edition. I believe there are only 1,000 of these printed. Comes with its own certificate of authenticity on the back, just to let you know it is real. And guys, remember that you can always head over to gamesdonequick.com. You can check out the tracker. It's going to give you the minimum donation amounts and all the information you're going to need on the upcoming prizes. It's going to give you the status on incentives and bid wars and everything you could care about knowing about Games Done Quick. With that, I've been Sent. This is OmniGamer, and we're going to throw it back up to the front for Silver Dial's Wiz and Liz, the Frantic Rabbit Rescue Run.
All right, thank you, Sent and OmniGamer. Catching up on a couple of donations real quick here. I've got a $150 donation from No Scope. Hey GDQ, longtime lurker and first-time donator. Always have a great time watching these events every year, and let's get the ball rolling in passing the Super Monkey Ball 2 incentive. Update on that actually for the Monkey Ball race. We are now over $20,000. We are 20, right? That's cool. We're at